My passion for golf really came from my dad. I used to go along with Dad to play a lot of golf after we played cricket on a Saturday. It really kicked off, I think, in 1986, which is the most famous US Masters of all time. Nicklaus making all these birdies, and lo and behold, there was Greg Norman on there as well. Blonde hair, hit it a mile, and just that whole aura around the US Masters is what got me into my love of the game of golf. There's a famous quote from Gary Player that he says the feeling never changes when you go back to the Masters. Look, being fortunate enough in our position where you get to go every year, the feeling doesn't change. I can only imagine what it's like for a player to drive down Magnolia Drive, but even for us each year, that when we head in there for the Par 3 tournament and it's the first opportunity of seeing Augusta for the first time, that you come back and you actually forget each year how great the place is. Yeah, 2016 at the Masters was a very special experience. I was fortunate enough to caddy for 2005 US Open champion Michael Campbell, so the Anzac spirit is well and truly alive, that you had an Aussie caddying for a Kiwi, but yeah, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Michael Campbell told me to be there at 2 o'clock, so of course I was there at probably about 1:30, and I saw Mark Leishman and spoke to him for a bit, and he said, yeah, you'll really enjoy today. And then it gets to, I think, about 2:30, and then there's no Cambo, and I'm thinking, this is the greatest setup of all time. I can't even begin to tell you how nervous I was for those 45 minutes. For all those years where you're outside the ropes, that all of a sudden you're in the inside of the ropes, and inside the caddy shed at Augusta National is Dustin Johnson and Ricky Fowler, all these guys that you've grew up idolising as a kid, and reality really hit when you go over and there's the famous white overalls where you got to put the white overalls on at Augusta National that we'd always seen on the TV, and I think that's where reality really hit. It was almost surreal. It was nearly like putting on your North Melbourne jumper for the first time, or those sorts of things, that all of a sudden you were putting on the overalls, the famous white overalls that you'd seen on TV forever and a day. I think once I went out on the practice tee, it was nearly like I went into game mode when we played football at the MCG, where yes, there's a lot of crowd there, but in the end, you knew that if you just focused on the task at hand, then you really enjoyed it. And then that's where I really started to get into the flow of it and go, hey, this is really cool. This is what I've been looking forward to all my life. Having Gary Player in the bay next to us at Augusta was pretty surreal when you've got a real life legend warming up beside you, but we only spent talking to him, I think, less than maybe 2 or 3 minutes. He would easily be one of the most inspirational people that I'd ever met. And at that time where he gave Michael Campbell a little pep talk on golf and life and things like that, where he said, Michael, he goes, there's always a way. It doesn't matter what happens, there's always a way in life. And I think he's applied that to his life to the extreme. Like, he's 80 years old, and I know 5 minutes later he yelled out to us, and he yells out, he goes, Michael, come over here. And we're thinking, oh, he's going to come over and have a chat again. And in the end he says, have a look at this. Have a look how far I'm hitting the ball, Michael. It's going 250 yards like this. And the guy's 82, 83 years old. I was in heaven as it was already anyway, and I think the first hole, Cambo didn't start off particularly well. I gave him a bit of rev. No, I didn't, Cambo. Then we were on the third hole, hit a pretty good shot that went probably 15 feet behind the flag, and I've walked up behind the green, put the clubs at the back of the green like you do, and then Cambo said, you're having a putt, big fella, and I sort of went, you serious? And he goes, yeah. I think because I was in that real mode of enjoying it and not so focused on the crowd and the people. I think if you did look around at the crowd and the people, I think I might have got a little bit nervous, but it was interesting. I got over the putt. Fortunately, when you play on sandbelt greens like at Huntingdale where the greens are quick, I got over the putt and just thought it's like a normal putt when you're putting at Huntingdale. Thankfully, it wasn't like my putts at Huntingdale, because I actually did hole it. So look, at that point, I said to Cambo, at least I can say I held a putt for birdie at Augusta National, and I could walk off and probably die a happy man to say at least I've made birdie at Augusta National.
And Adam Scott has birdied the 72nd hole to get to 9 under. Look at that. Oh, he did it.
As is custom at Augusta National, all the members do stand on the tee and do meet and greets. And as we finished on one of the holes, you just walked over and you're sort of in a little bit of a daze. There's a lot of people with their green jackets on, and you walk up onto the tee, and the lady that was on the tee was Condoleezza Rice. So it was pretty good meeting at one point probably the second most powerful person in the world. Yeah, look, Michael Campbell had been winding me up the night before when we'd had a number of beers, and he was saying, look, he goes, you know that you're going to have a shot on the 9th hole, and I thought it was just him winding me up. Now, when you're 6'5", you've got someone else's clubs. It probably wasn't one of the easiest shots that I ever hit, but look, like I mentioned before, it was one of those shots that I got over that I actually gave myself a little pep talk before it and said, Corey, you've actually been waiting 30 years to hit this shot, and whilst it wasn't the best shot in the world, I can honestly say with my hand on my heart, I didn't get nervous. I was probably more nervous about the fact of hitting the shot when you're on these little cut down clubs and you've got the overalls on, which are pretty restrictive. And thankfully I managed to keep the ball dry. Did we make birdie? No, but at least I did get it across the water. Yeah, look, out of all the photos, it'll probably go down as one of my favourite sports photos that I've got. It was actually, thankfully enough, all the staff at Augusta actually let Kirsten, my wife, down on the tee, and you can see her standing at the back of the tee. But Francis, one of Michael Campbell's good mates, managed to take that great sort of panoramic shot, and even better, it makes it look like I've hit the greatest shot of all time. With that follow through I put on it, it does look like I've hit a great shot. Yeah, over the years I've been pretty fortunate in my sports and business life to be able to do some pretty amazing things and amazing experiences. None higher than winning the 96 and the 99 grand final, but caddying in the 2016 US Masters is certainly every bit as good as winning the premierships with the Kangaroos. Yeah, what I'm looking forward to most at next year's US Masters, I think the final return of Tiger Woods and one last chapter in his great career. To hear those roars going around the back nine at Augusta once again will be something special. If you want to join me, check out the CMU website for all the details.